Hey everyone, it's Jennifer from stampwithjennifer.blogspot.com, and today I want to make a quick video to show you how to heat emboss and also to how to do a technique called Emboss Resist. So this is the card that the tutorial is based on, and this card is a card sample from our annual catalog. It is from our 2016-2017 annual catalog. Okay, so I'm going to show you how to heat emboss, some quick tips on that, and then just real quick how to get this effect here, which is called Emboss Resist. Okay, so for heat embossing, you're going to need a Versamark ink pad. Of course, Stampin' Up! Carries this, and the beauty is we carry an ink refill for the Versamark pad. So when your pad does start to dry out, you just refill the ink. You don't ever have to buy a new pad. So Versamark is a watermark stamp pad. It does many different stamping techniques, but for heat embossing, the ink stays sticky and wet long enough for the powder to actually stick to it. Our regular inks dry too fast for that normally. Okay, so Versamark ink, and then the stamp set, you could use any stamp of course, but I'm using Helping Me Grow, and it's of course in the catalog. And this little image right here I wanted to point out. It's a really neat little image, which looks like I was super artistic and hand drew these corners, but I just stamped them from that stamp right there. Okay, so I'm going to put some scratch paper down, and because this stamp is so large, I've got it on our block F. Because it's so large, I'm going to ink it upside down, but that's only because the stamp is large, not anything to do with heat embossing. If I were going to stamp this image in a regular color, I would also do it upside down like this. And I just want to get plenty of ink on there. Oh, and before I stamp it, I want to remove the static from my cardstock. Very important step. So this is a dryer sheet. This is what I like to use to remove the static from my projects. Just an unused dryer sheet. And I like that personally because it doesn't leave any residue on my cards, and it works. Okay, so I've inked up the image with Versamark, and I'm going to stamp it. I am going to stamp down. Now, always remember when you're using a photopolymer stamp, which are the ones that are completely see-through, on a soft surface table like a plastic table or an uneven surface, use a foam stamping pad underneath the stamp. My table is very firm, so I can use this photopolymer stamp without that, but keep that in mind for photopolymer stamps. Okay, so I've stamped it, and Versamark is very sticky, so you can see it's going to stick, and you'll probably have to peel your paper off. That's normal. And I always like to keep my ink and stamps very far away from my powder. So this is Stampin' Up's clear embossing powder. You can heat emboss with any color powder you want, and of course I feel that Stampin' Up's quality of embossing powder is the best, but you can heat emboss with any powder you want, but we're doing clear for this technique. So what I did is scoop the powder so that it goes across and touches everywhere I stamped. Then I'm going to shake that off. Then I'm going to grab the paper somewhere I did not stamp and turn it upside down and thump. So you guys hear how loud that is? That's how hard you should thump to get all the excess powder to fall off. And hopefully in the video you can see the image there, but I can very clearly see the image. And if there was any excess powder, you could remove it this way or with a paintbrush. But you do need to remove that powder because it'll heat emboss and stick when you heat it, number one. And the second thing is when we do this technique, even though it's clear, we would have little white dots. Okay, so we're ready to heat emboss. I would not recommend doing it down on your table. I just want to show you a trick I learned years ago, is to clip a clothespin to your embossing tool, your heat tool, and leave it there forever. So when you're ready to heat emboss, you don't want to get burned. You do have to heat emboss with a heat tool. A blow dryer is not strong enough. I tried that at first as well. And your Stampin' Up's heat tool has two heat settings. One is low, like to set ink to dry. Number two is the one that gets hot enough to heat emboss. So make sure you scoot it all the way up to 2 and just watch the magic happen. It does take a minute for your heat tool to heat up, so don't worry when you first start, you won't see anything, and then once it's heated up very warm, your heat embossing goes very quickly. So there it went. It's turning, in this case, just a clear shiny, and once it's heated and melted in one spot, move on. Do not keep heating that area, no matter what type of heat embossing you're doing, because it will overheat and melt too much and it will not look cute. And I'm just kind of doing one section at a time. When I'm finished, I always use some kind of lamp to reflect the image and make sure that I didn't miss a spot. You can tell if you missed a spot because it will look grainy, kind of like salt or pepper. And of course you wouldn't want to do this, but if you touched it, it would rub off. So if you see a grainy area that's not as shiny, not as white or black or whatever color your powder is, or looks like salt and pepper, heat that one spot a tiny bit more and it will you know, finish that so that it doesn't come off your project later. So this one is all finished and everything looks good, and the image is clear, so it's hard to see it, but that's the beauty of the Emboss Resist technique. Okay, so all we need is some ink and a sponge. I like to use sponge daubers usually for this technique, but you can use a regular sponge as well. We have Calypso Coral and Pool Party. And I'm going to start with the coral. That's where we're actually going to use the resist technique. And of course you want to do the flowers first in this image so that you can see where is left to put your pool party. So you want to always test this on your scratch paper first. Make sure there's not too much ink and you don't get a harsh circle like that, because it'll be hard to make that come off of your project. So I don't have too much ink. I'm just going to start rubbing, and what will happen, and you want to just slowly keep adding ink from your, you know, to your sponge. Don't try to get all the ink on there at one time. What will happen is the image will start to magically appear out from under your sponging. What is happening is the heat embossing powder is resisting this ink. Okay? Then you can take a paper towel or a rag or something and wipe off the excess ink, and you can make that come to life even more. So that is how you do Emboss Resist. For the other ink that was, of course I would finish those, and then I just sort of filled in the spots. And again, I got this sample idea from the Stampin' Up catalog, so I kind of based it on how they, you know, where they place their ink, but nothing ever has to be exactly the same or perfect in stamping, so always keep that in mind. Don't stress if yours looks different than someone else's. You can see down here we rubbed the pool party over the stems and then used a paper towel to remove the excess ink, so you can see the stems as well through the pool party ink. And that's it. So that's how easy heat embossing is and Emboss Resist. So I hope you liked the video. If you did, feel free to give me a thumbs up down below, and I hope to see you again at stampwithjennifer.blogspot.com.